Are you an excellent believer in your workplace? Do you do your work in such a way that Christ is seen? My name is Ernest Wamboye and you are watching CITAM Church Online. It's been said that many people do not like to work with believers because they say that believers are lazy, or believers don't like to do above the bare minimum, or believers tend to submit themselves only when it is convenient for them. Well, in as much as that's a stereotype, you may find that in certain circles there's some truth to it. It may not be true of all believers, but wherever it is true, we must address it. And we're going to look at the life of Daniel. Daniel was a man who was in a pagan kingdom. He came from Israel, but then he was taken to a different nation, that is Babylon, because their own nation had been taken over politically. And Daniel had been taken to Babylon, and he was a fugitive there. He had to belong to a different environment. He had to dress differently, talk differently. His entire culture changed. And Daniel got an opportunity where he worked for the pagan king of that time. And I'm going to read for you what it says in Daniel chapter 6 from verse 1 to verse 4. This is what it says: that King Darius decided to appoint 120 satraps over his kingdom, and he stationed them throughout the realm. And one of them was Daniel. And these satraps would be accountable to the king so that he would not be defrauded. That means that he would not suffer loss. And then it says in verse 3 that Daniel distinguished himself above the administrators and the satraps because he had an extraordinary spirit. So the king planned to set him over the whole realm. The administrators, the satraps, therefore kept trying to find a charge against Daniel regarding the kingdom. But they could find no charge of corruption, for he was trustworthy. No negligence or corruption was found in him. Can such a testimony be given concerning you as a believer, that your work ethic is above par to the point that the people around you notice it and they even try and conspire against you? We're going to look at the first way in which Daniel was an extraordinary and an effective believer in the workplace. The first thing we see is that Daniel took up a leadership position. Daniel was given a leadership position. We are told that there were 3 administrators in the kingdom, and Daniel was one of the 3. Now, if you look at that role there, you realize that was a very powerful role. It was almost like the role of a governor, almost second to the president in terms of regional administration. And Daniel was one of them. The question is our effectiveness in the workplace so good to the point that we can be entrusted with the leadership positions? Or, in other words, when we see leadership positions that we can take up and have our influence go through them, do we take them up or do we just sit back? It is important for believers to look out for such opportunities and take them up. Daniel, in his position as an administrator, and not just an administrator, but a governor, 3, he was one of the 3, was able to make certain key decisions for the entire kingdom. You will realize that in whatever company you've been placed, whatever school you've been placed, there are some positions of influence that you can use to bring God's kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Let's talk about the school. There are some student leadership positions. There are some club positions. There are some positions of influence that believers might as well go for, because in doing that, they will be able to influence Christ-likeness. Look at the workplace. There may be committees to chair. There may be situations where they call for volunteers to take up leadership positions. And the question is, are you effective enough to take up those positions, or are you qualified for them to select you? Believers must not shy away from leadership positions. When I was in the university, I ran for student government, and we were 7 believers at that time who wanted to run for a government that had 10 elective positions. And we came together, we said we're going to do our best, we're going to campaign, we're going to put out our manifestos out there, and we're going to try and make sure that as many of us get in there and influence the school's events, the school's activities for Christ. Now, out of 7 of us, 6 of us got in. And we were shrewd. We made sure that we belonged with the right kind of people. We made sure that we joined ourselves the right kinds of coalitions. And 6 out of 10 got in. You can imagine the kind of influence that we had in school at that time. We made sure that we brought in gospel artists. We made sure that our events were clean. We made sure that we were very integral with our money. I remember when we came into office, we were in debt. But by the time we came out, we had already recovered from the debt and had enough money for future governments. You as a believer can take up such positions and influence the workplace, influence your school, influence your society for Christ. The question is, will you rise up to the task like Daniel did? Thank you very much for watching. This is CITAM Church Online. If you'd like to connect with us, our numbers and our contacts are at the bottom of the screen. Please join us on Sunday for our weekly services. We'd love to hear from you. We'd also like to hear a few comments concerning the video you just watched. Did it minister to you in any special way? Looking forward to seeing you next week as we continue with this series. My name is Ernest Wamboye, and you are watching CITAM Church Online.